Hi, my name's Nina Linder, and today I'm going to be going over my Module 1 discussion. So I wanted to start off by getting into the English explorers that came over. They were in seek of the three G's, which are God, glory, and gold. They wanted to spark innovation in the New World through religious pursuit, potential cash crops or profits that they could get from gold, and then glory, which is just forming a new government and just having new land and escaping England and Great Britain. So some of the early explorers, of course, they were in pursuit of the three G's. Some of them that are really well known are like Christopher Columbus, and then they kind of set the bar for the age of exploration and sparked the new age in the New World. And then this also introduced the New World and the Old World of the Columbian Exchange, which was between America, Africa, and Europe. They were all trading what they had to offer, and because they went to the New World and saw all of what it had to offer, they were able to do this kind of triangle pyramid system of where they could trade stuff back and forth with the new things that they found. So when they first came over, obviously it wasn't the 13 colonies yet. Some of the first settlements that they found were Jamestown and Roanoke. Jamestown was actually the first permanent English settlement. Roanoke, they tried to colonize it twice. The first time they went back to England after being afraid that they wouldn't have enough food to survive the winter. They went back to England. The second time when they came back, they unfortunately disappeared, and we don't know the reasoning or why it happened. We don't know anything about it other than the fact that they were never found again. We do know that there was a tree that Croatoan was carved onto, and that's about it. So as for Roanoke Island, we don't know, and Jamestown, of course, became a booming success in Virginia, and it was a big deal. So eventually there was the 13 colonies, and they each had the regions. So there was the Southern, Middle, and the New England colonies. Each of these had differences. So New England, because it had colder winters but more pleasant summers, you're gonna find more fishing, timber, there was just more water there. It was a little colder, so they had more opportunities for that. Some important people in the New England colonies were people like Thomas Hooker. In the southern colonies, this was where cash crops were introduced, such as tobacco. The cash crops made them really a plantation agriculture-based economy. The South was really big into slavery, which I will talk about in a little bit, but the South had the most slavery out of all of them, and they relied on these cash crops. They had the warmest climate, and they were also the wealthiest. Some important people from there were Thomas Jefferson and William Berkeley. As for the middle colonies, there were a lot of merchants here. They had fertile soil, but they didn't tap on it as much as the southern colonies did with their cash crops. So they were merchants and farmers, but not the wealthy plantation farmers that you would think of in the southern colonies. It's a moderate climate, so it's pretty average, in the middle. It was the most religiously and ethnically diverse out of all three of them. And then they had some famous people like William Penn, who you could see as the Quaker, like the Quaker Oats guy. So before we actually colonized these colonies, we had Native Americans roaming around the land. So there were 4 different Native American groups. There was the East Coast, Southwest, Northwest, and the Midwest. In the Northwest, they mainly fished along the Pacific Ocean. In the Southwest, they would find means of irrigation for agriculture. In the Great Plains or the Midwest, they mainly hunted and gathered food because they didn't have as many opportunities to fish since they were in landlocked states. And then the East Coast, they used a 3-sister farming method. So back to that slavery issue in the South, we had the Atlantic slave trade, which was a big deal. People were buying slaves from Africa, and they would be shipped over on boats and sold to wealthy farm owners in the South and in all of the colonies. There wasn't a colony where there weren't slaves. There were just areas that had more than others. So the Atlantic slave trade was a really big deal, and it made it so that there were also indentured servants. Indentured servants wanted to find a way out of England, and they knew that they would be happier in the New World Even if they were poor and enslaved within the New World, they knew that they would be happier there once they were free than continuing to be poor in religious, like Protestant. Like you couldn't have any religious ideals outside of what the religious reform was there. So they wanted to go ahead and try it out in this new world, and they knew that they could be an indentured servant. So being an indentured servant, you would sign up for a year sentence, so like maybe 7 years, 10 years, however long, and you would serve out your enslavement to your owners for that time period. You'd get housing and everything, and then once that was done, you were free to live in the new world, which was nice. And then they could get their property and everything, and they would have a free trip essentially to the new world after serving those years of payment. And then of course there were actual slaves and indentured servants. So slaves had no choice in freedom. They were typically African Americans, and they came over from Africa in the Atlantic slave trade. They had no choice in freedom like indentured servants. They were just stuck into slavery. There were a lot of rules based upon slavery about how they were going to go about this, which we actually learned more about in Module 2. But there were many laws eventually set up, like the 3/5 Compromise, and how they would follow the mother. Like if a mother that was a slave and a white man had a baby, then the baby would be a slave following the mother. So there were a bunch of laws that were set forth after the introduction of slavery into the South. Getting into a time of the Salem witch trials. So the Salem witch trials were acts of mass hysteria. There were these girls who began to have fits and throw tantrums, and they said that people were practicing witchcraft. So when people accused one of practicing witchcraft, they were a very religious group. So anytime someone said that, they thought that they were conspiring with the devil, and they did not appreciate that whatsoever. So you basically had two options if you were accused. You could either, one, confess, and you would most likely be free, or two, don't confess, and you would be hung. So if you did confess, of course, your name in the town is tarnished, your reputation is gone, but you would be free from dying. Whereas if you do not confess and you hold your pride, you will die. The jury system in this town served a lot of people like their town's members. It wasn't people outside. So it was very biased court systems, and there were accusations just going left and right. A lot of people say that this was just an act of mass hysteria. There is a theory that it was from ergot poisoning, but mainly the main issue was mass hysteria. Others say that there was tension with neighboring towns and the Native Americans and just all of that, but the main issue with that was mass hysteria. So that was my Module 1 discussion. That was all I could mainly think of to summarize everything. If you have any more questions about what you think I need to go over more to show my understanding of the module, then I would be happy to do that. I just wanted to give kind of a short, quick summary about what I did know and trying to hit all of those lessons. So thank you. Let me know if you have any questions.